um, connected to the idea that my paying attention to their suffering, I'm sort of connecting with them. I'm on their side. I'm with you, that kind of thing. And whereas if I go play in the garden, I've turned my back on you. You can go suffer. I'm going to go harvest my lettuce. That's where I go.
Hmm. So, I'm not going to, reject your belief. That's not my place. So the belief itself, I don't necessarily have an opinion on. That's your belief, but I can point out the dysfunction in that dynamic. Now, so Lisa writes that, but do they require our full attention? Because we can split our awareness. Also, what we're talking about isn't just the belief, because you go into the thinking patterns. So you feel that you need to feel the suffering because they're feeling the suffering. And I would not allow that thought process to continue in my own mind, because that doesn't serve me, that doesn't benefit me, that doesn't benefit them. Nobody is getting in the position of an elegant solution if we're all just suffering. Right. So that's not necessary. We don't all have to touch that. If I see you touching the hot pan, Gene, I can console you, and I can be your best friend in that moment. But I'm not going to touch the hot pan just to touch it with you. I'm not going to do that. That doesn't make any sense. That's not functional. So, but I do understand this idea that I don't want to disconnect myself from the things that are going on. You have historical reference, so you've seen things in this country occur, and here we are again doing the same thing that we were doing in the 60s, the same thing that we were doing in the 80s, and here we are again doing the exact same thing, going down the exact same road, talking about the exact same things. If you went and read a news article from 1968, you wouldn't know whether that was occurring today or whether that was 1968. And I understand that. And in principle, your response to what you're observing is your responsibility. So as Lisa pointed out, if you choose to give the news your full attention, that's still your choice. But if that is an unconscious occurrence, if you begin to watch TV and your attention is no longer deliberate in the moment, the golden rule is not active, you are a leaf at the mercy of the news. So you're now you're not even a leaf at the mercy of a low statistical probability. You know damn well what that news is going to do to you and how it's going to make you feel, and none of that is beneficial. And I'll give you an example. So I feel, that I should be informed. I don't mind that belief. The belief is to be reasonably informed. I don't get into suffering and things like that from it. But I do want to watch. I do want to know what's going on. But I also know that I've trained in my mind, and I know how I'm going to respond. So it's not a battleground. I could turn on the news for 2-3 hours and I don't have an emotional response from it. And I know that. So I don't mind watching the news. However, if I knew that I had a reaction to it, and if I know that that's a potential, in air quotes, battleground, I'm going to prepare myself for that. And what I would recommend, if you're going to watch the news, split your attention. So when I watch TV, I use a type of vision to where I can see the whole TV. Or I don't look at what the cameraman is wanting me to look at. So that's really easy with the news, because you can look behind them and look at the pictures that they're showing. If there's a news person talking, I'm looking behind him. Why? Because my mind isn't used to doing it, and it's a deliberate point of attention. Or while I'm watching the news or while I'm watching a broadcast, I am sitting in the sage's posture. Why? Because I put my body there. It's not an accident. It's not a habit. I have to sit, breathe, all in a very deliberate manner for the sage's posture. And that is all a deliberate point of attention, at least 2 degrees, while watching. And then what you're doing is you're putting yourself in the position to see the thoughts that don't serve you, to see the stream of cognitive function that is occurring, that is repetitive. Let's say you have an opinion, Gene. It could be any opinion, okay? Great. I don't declare war on your opinions. I'm not going to declare war on your beliefs. How many times do you need to think that thought? So Karen says it's okay to litter, and you think it's terrible to litter. Lisa says it's okay to litter, and then you think, no, 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 it's terrible to litter. Shayna says it's okay to litter. Well, that was three different people's thoughts, but you responded to all three in the exact same way. That is repetitive. That is habitual. You're responding to people, and when you're doing that, you're not in the position to learn. You're not in the position to feel empathy. And when I say empathy, I'm not talking about the new age, I'm taking on people's emotions. If you think their thoughts, you're going to start to think similar emotions. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Or you can even enter into a room where you feel the energy, and now we get swept up in that mob mentality, or even joy. When you walk into a room and a baby was just born, you're going to smile. You're going to be like, what's going on, guys? Like, I feel the joy in the room, and I'm curious why, what's going on. But we felt that first. We felt that energetic pull. That's not what I'm classifying as the new age empathy. Sometimes that lacks definition. So if it is something, it's not something that I can define, teach, or talk about really. So, but I don't declare war on it. Whatever it is, but I can't talk about it because there's just no real way to, other than my opinions and my own experience. It has nothing to do with you. So I don't see the point in that. So we have the news, and we have the desire to stay informed, and I can appreciate that. I actually share that desire. Whether that desire is absolutely necessary is not the case. Maybe Karen doesn't feel the need to watch any news. Do you see what I mean? She could be A-okay, just like this is all a cycle. This happened in the 60s. I know it's going to happen. Like, they're going to do this and that, and then we'll be on to the next thing. So, and I'm not saying that's true, Karen. Of course, I just use names as examples. But so that's how we know, Gene, that our belief to stay informed isn't absolute. There's no absolute principle that we need to be informed, because look at the world before the internet. There would be things going on that you had no idea were going on until months after they occurred. So the world will go on whether you know what's going on or not. So there's no absolute principle. So we're dealing with opinion, and that's okay. I have an opinion, you have an opinion. My opinion's kind of the same. I would like to stay informed. I do want to know what's going on, because people ask me questions. They want to know, how can I feel more peace when I'm doing this, that, or the other thing? And so this is the answer. It all goes back to the golden rule of awareness and maintaining our practice. We're not going to, you will feel the residual effect of a formal practice, but we're not banking on that. Like, we're not putting all of our chips in the residual effect department, just hoping that our meditation today, helps us just have the best day ever. But what we are doing is paying attention to the present moment at least 2 degrees all of the time, because we're committed to our own consciousness. We're committed to our own attention, and whether it's there on purpose, and whether we're interacting with the now moment in a way that is functional. Because I want functional. I want to learn. I want to collaborate. I want to grow. I want my mind to become more elegant, more relaxed, more connected. I want more communication. And I'm using words like more. Really, all it is just less obstruction. The flow is just between 2 points, no longer is discernible as 2 points anymore. It's just instant communication almost. And that happens when you're around somebody and you're communicating really well. You start finishing their sentences, they start finishing yours. You have ideas at the same time when there's no stimuli around you to trigger the thought, but yet you're both thinking the same thing. So communication, when it's unobstructed, can be a really cool thing to observe, right? So if we're going to watch the news because we have a belief, that's fine. However, if our golden rule is active, we're putting ourselves in the position to be conscious creators, to consciously go into watching the news, to consciously go into information. So for example, I'll use CNN. Sometimes they get on a straight up loop, where after 15 or 20 minutes, you are literally watching the same thing. Literally. I'm not, that's not figurative. They're literally talking about the same stories with the same words in the same order. Now, if you were doing your practice, you would notice that right away and say, okay, well, I'm not really learning anything right now. And it's not really serving my purpose of staying informed. And I start to feel that I'm getting pulled by this, and the pull is internal. So the news isn't pulling me. I'm allowing myself to be pulled because of my unconscious state of mind. I'm going towards unconsciousness. the thinking starts to roll, and now I'm labeling, judging, and even notice your own thoughts. You have thought them before. Chances are those thoughts in response to the news are not elegant, are not creative, but yet there's still the, and so this is the Mike made this. If we get a t-shirt, we're gonna have a t-shirt that says "but still," because it's I get it, you know, but still we want to stay informed and we want to be reasonably active. Again, the activity or how we respond to things going on in the world, there is no absolute measure for that. So we're not really looking at principle in terms of whether we should or should not respond. So for example, again, Karen could be perfectly happy in her apartment, to herself, with her animal. I'm just making shit up. I don't know if she has animals. I don't know if she lives in an apartment. You know, doing her own thing, focusing on her practice, focusing on her conscious creation, focusing on her garden. And I would have nothing to say about that. It's not my place, you know. However, Gene, I think that you and I may share an opinion that maybe there's something we can do. We don't put ourselves in the position to respond efficiently when we're in a pattern. We'll find ourselves doing the same thing in the same order with other people who are doing the same thing in the same order. And we see that that doesn't really lead to anything new. It doesn't really change anything. So, you know, I had some thoughts. What are some things, you know, that you could do? What are some things, Ernest, that you could do to help? I had the idea to write a book. You know, if I write a book about racism, it's not going to get popular for quite some time because it's all about individual responsibility. We don't see that. We don't hear, well, what about your thoughts? What am I thinking? You know, so I'll give my own example. I used to judge drivers. I used to judge a certain demographic of human beings as automatically bad drivers. Has anybody ever heard of that? I'll give two examples here real quick, and then we can talk about something else, or you guys can give feedback. But I'll give two examples. So one, I used to judge Asian drivers. Getting caught up in thoughts about it. What do you mean, Shayna? And then I'll talk about judging Asian drivers. I don't want to, that's a hell of a cliffhanger.
Oh, no, I was just talking about whatever situation it is. It's easy to get caught up in the thoughts about it rather than determining, moving forward and doing actions towards, you know, something better, more positive. That we get caught in this loop about what is happening. Even thoughts and words sometimes. That's what I was talking to Kobe about yesterday, how even words like can cause chaos, whether it's Black Lives Matter, All Lives Matter, Blue Lives Matter. We get caught up in just the thoughts about that and no action towards resolving the issue that is happening is occurring. So just that's what I meant by thoughts about it.
Yeah.
No actions, no productive activities occurring.
Right. And you know, I'll clarify that in principle, that the thoughts that are occurring about it are not creative. They are not new. They are not innovative because they're repetitive, habitual responses to repetitive and habitual stimuli. You know, there's a reason this shit keeps happening because the mind isn't really changing. But yeah, so Shayna's exactly right. We continue to think about it and it's not new. It's not fresh. It's our own opinion. It's the same opinion. It's, you know, and now we're discussing this with other people and now it's just dominating our thought process. And that's it's unconsciousness. It's just an unconscious pattern. And so in the first example, I would judge drivers, Asian drivers specifically. I would think these thoughts to myself when I would see somebody who was driving poorly, and then inner guru, Ernest, you're doing that. That's you. And I would, you know, I'm thinking to myself, well, what does that matter? That is your output. That is your responsibility. You are thinking those thoughts about people, and that's where your prejudice, that's where your ideas against an entire demographic of human beings is coming from, because you keep charging it with your thoughts. And I'm like, well, but look at the guys going the wrong way on a one-way street, man. Like, what am I supposed to think? Nothing. Why do I need to think anything other than that guy's confused, apparently? But why do I have to go from one thing to the same repetitive, habitual thought, even if it has a kernel of truth? And Inner Guru told me that. And I'm like, so are you saying, are you admitting now that, this demographic doesn't drive well? And Inner Guru's, no, I'm not, Inner Guru's not admitting anything. It's just, even if it has a kernel of truth, why do I need to continue to think it again and again and again and again and again? That's a weed in my garden. So I do have an idea of a way of writing a book that's all about personal responsibility. It's my mind, my thoughts. If every time I think that an Asian can't drive, I am reinforcing a prejudice, a type of racism, and it's in my mind. It has nothing to do with, oh, but Shayna thinks that, and Lisa taught it to me, and Karen, believes the same thing, and Ida, she also can't drive, so what does she know? That has nothing to do with it. It's my output at that point, and we're just talking about dynamics. That thought is my output. That reaction is my output. And if it's repetitive, habitual, and about it, it's never going to lead to anything new. It's never going to lead to any kind of change. And
we are all responsible for our output.
Yes. It's actually one of the only things that we can really influence without attempting to control, because I can't control your output. I might try to force you in a position to influence your output, but ultimately I can't, because at any moment you could choose to do something different, even if it looks like control, even if people look like consumers. At any moment you could say, wait a second, I don't want to just consume. I'm going to buy a pair of shoes and make it last for 5 years rather than constantly consuming. I'm going to get a phone and I won't get another one until chunks of glass are literally coming out of it, because I don't want to consume. So that choice is up to the person at any moment. They can do whatever they want. We don't have any true control over other people. That doesn't exist. Now, here's the second scenario. So in the first one, I'm judging drivers, and I'm responding in that way. What was my other example? I had two examples. One is judging drivers. I can't remember what the other example was. It'll come to me. I didn't think that thoughts mattered if I didn't speak them. Okay, that's actually what, thank you, Ida. So I just looked at your comment. That's what I wanted to mention. How about jokes? So, I'm gonna go somewhere with this. The jokes that we tell are thoughts that we're thinking. And when we tell jokes many times, it becomes repetitive. So now we have this repetitive thought stream. What about racist jokes? When I worked at the movie theater, there was a manager who was always telling racist jokes, and everyone's like, oh, it's just a joke. Just take a joke. It's just a joke. Maybe it's not just a joke. Maybe the racist jokes, the sexist jokes, if we're laughing at them, if we're finding them funny, there's something potentially going on there. Do you see what I mean? So I started to look at the way that I joked. Why do I find that funny? I don't want to find that funny. So at the movie theater, they had this movie, Jackass. And if you like Jackass, that's fine. I'm not judging what you like, but I just didn't find it entertaining at a certain point. I'm just like, I like witty humor. I like intelligent humor. I like somebody to say something, it's just like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, you have General Iroh and Sokka. I think he's the firebender. And General Iroh gives him a very good compliment, and he also makes a comment about his tea. And he's like, he tells the younger one how good he was, and he's like, oh, you're really, really great. And then they're walking away, and he's like, did you really mean it? And he's like, yes, of course. That's my favorite tea. And it's just the right type of humor. It's just witty. It's just well placed. It's just really funny. And I don't know, that has nothing to do with anything, I guess, but it's just an example of humor, that I don't want to say is functional or less functional, but the way that I'm looking at jokes and the way that I was looking at things is that's just another stream of thought. And those jokes that are racist, those jokes that are sexist, that's perpetuating a thought. And that thought, even though it's just a joke, it counts. That's output. And I have to take responsibility for that. So when we talk about things like And so now I'm giving the example of, Ernest, what can you do? Rather than exercise force, I don't necessarily, I won't get into specifics of protesting and things like that, what I feel like doing, what I don't feel like doing. But I had the inspiration, Ernest, you know what can help. You know the root of racism. It's the thoughts, it's the talking, it's the way that we talk, it's the way that we communicate. Two white people get around each other and they'll say, two white men get around each other and they say racist, sexist jokes, but then they get around other people and, oh, no, we're not going to do that now. Something's going on there. Like, if you feel comfortable doing it, and like when Trump in the locker room talk, okay, but that thought stream counts, is what I'm saying. It counts, and it is output, and I am responsible for that. And so maybe some of the racism and maybe some of the sexism, and this is just one example. I'm not saying this is all coming from jokes. This is just one of many potential examples. But this idea came because I was relaxed. And the idea of a book that I could write that could just clearly point to, hey, if you really want to end racism in the world, take responsibility for your mind, the way that you think. If everybody did that, if we all started to take full responsibility for our thinking, every single thought that we think, instead of just brushing it off and saying thoughts don't matter, I can think anything I want as long as I don't act on it. Bullshit. That is not true. That is just physically not true. Every single thought has a physiological response to it. The joke made you laugh. Why is it so funny that Asians can't drive? Why is it so funny, that women can't do this and that, African Americans can't do that? And why is that funny to you? Do you see what I mean? And jokes are often linked to people's underlying thoughts and beliefs. That may be true, and actually that is true, but I don't go into that. That's not necessary. Now, I could give you, that's kind of a look at two different types of ways to explore cognition, like behavioral therapy and things like that. Want to go into the underlining. Well, let's dig into that, Carly, and find out where your underlining thoughts and beliefs come from. And that, no, that's not necessary. Where is your mind now? And are those thoughts serving you? So the joke, is that serving you? At the movie theater, I would clay them up. I'd start to tell a joke and I'm like, wait a second. First of all, I'm just telling this joke because I want them to laugh. I want them to laugh because I want them to think a certain way about me. I want them to think a certain way about me because I'm asphyxiated and attached to the construct of self and self-image. And Inner Guru is saying that. That's all Inner Guru. And Inner Guru is telling me true things that I know and is reminding me. And then I wouldn't do it. I'd walk out of the break room and I wouldn't say that joke. Somebody would say something completely inappropriate. I don't have to participate. I walk out. The boss. So we went to a movie theater in Florida to help them open. And the CEO of Carmike Cinemas was there. And Carmike Cinemas, at the time, owned like 500 movie theaters, and they combined with AMC. So this guy has clout, he's got a lot of money and he's got a lot of this and a lot of that. And everybody's, falling all over themselves, and they're going back to the hotel and they're like, Ernest, stay up and drink. And I'm like, no. And he's like, wow, you don't like to have fun. And I'm like, we just did a lot of work. It's 9 p.m. I'm going to go to bed because that's what I want to do. It has nothing to do with you. If you want to go drink and enjoy the festivities, by all means. I'm on this 5th floor over here. You ain't going to bother me. But I wasn't going to, and they were telling racist jokes and all of these different things, sexist jokes, and the women laugh. And, the African American that was there laughed at the racist jokes. And Inner Guru said, Ernest, you can't do that. You're not going to laugh at this shit that's not funny. You're not going to participate in this bullshit just because he thinks he's important. But Ernest, how are you going to get the raise? How are you going to get the clout? How are you going to get them to recognize you? You're not, if that's the case. Because one is far more important than the other. Your mind is your responsibility, and that is always number one. And I didn't participate in those shenanigans. I went back to my room because I'm not going to be a part of all of that. No matter how people are looking at me and judging me, and whether it results in a raise or the boss being impressed. This man was literally in charge of over 500 movie theaters. He was the CEO of Carmike Cinemas, and I shrugged him off. I'm just like, fuck you, dude. I don't like the way you're talking right now. So, and then the next morning he tried to offer me a ride. And I was like, I'm fine walking. And that just threw him back. He's like, and you know, later we had a, because he thought I had a problem with him, of course. He's like, well, what, you got a problem? It's like, no, it's just, you know, our minds are a little bit different. And, you know, I'm not going to run up behind you, you know, just because you think you're special. Sorry, not sorry. But I'm not going to disrespect him either. I'm going to treat him like I want to treat everybody, you know, with kindness and compassion. But no, I'm not going to run. You breathe air just like me, and you'll transition to something new just like me. And every night before you go to bed, you close your eyes and we're on a par. We're in the exact same nothingness world with your eyes closed, about to go to sleep. So nobody is better than me. I'm not better than anybody else. And I came to some of these conclusions by doing one thing. All of this was a result. Everything I'm talking about right now is a result of one thing: the golden rule of awareness. In every situation, I am splitting my attention at least 2 degrees with the present moment. So before I would watch the news, I would think of a way. Well, how am I going to watch the news today? Video games. Video games can become a very unconscious thing. Watching sports can become a very unconscious thing. You just let your mind get swept away. And yeah, it can be a little bit enjoyable, but you're a leaf at the mercy of the wind. What happens when your team misses the last second shot? And now you're punching the wall and you're, you know, and you're like, oh, I don't know what came over me. You were unconscious. Like you just got swept away with unconscious energy, and you went from having fun to, I'm going to kill you. And that's leaf at the mercy of the wind. No thanks. Like I don't find that little bit of excitement as worth it to be a complete leaf at the mercy of the wind. So what did I do? I started to pay attention. When I would go to the basketball games, the live basketball games, I would defocus my vision and I would gain the seer's perspective, a perspective that isn't being driven by thought. And then I saw the whole crowd raise all at the same time with defocused vision, and I felt the energy in the room rise, and I instantly knew there's something going on here vibrationally. Like there's something with the energy and the rise and the feeling and everything that just makes everybody, and then they miss the free throw, and then all of a sudden deflation in the whole stadium. And I'm like, yeah, there's something energetic, psychological, and I'm seeing, you know, perspective and what's going on in a whole new way. That's what I mean by seeing. It's a mind that is unobstructed by thought. You see things in a new way. So those are some personal examples: judging drivers, getting involved in jokes and things like that. So, and then the overarching point is, Ernest, what can you do? Because I'm kind of like Gene. I think that I could do a little bit. Maybe there's something I could do. And maybe there is, but trying to figure it out isn't going to work. Joining, so let's look at the 4 modes or the 4 voices. I'm not going to join unconsciousness and unconsciousness. Yeah. And repeating the same patterns, expecting different results, throwing bricks through windows, expecting that to achieve some sort of goal. We've done that before, and that's not what was causing the change. So what did cause the change? We could look at that, maybe focus on shining our lights bright in the presence of other people, as Ram Dass said. If we really want to affect change in the world, that's the only thing we can do without trying to control, is to, and see, Gene, that's not just going out into your garden and just being to yourself. So for me, shining my light brightly could mean maybe I invite somebody who's suffering, you know, a veteran or something, and we go fox walking together. Or it's action based, but it's also still includes the golden rule. It still includes what could solve racism on this planet. And how do I know? And then I'll stop with my spiel. But how do I know? Because if Gene was born and we took him and raised him by wolves, he wouldn't be racist. He would never come to those conclusions. He would never in a single lifetime come to the conclusion that darker skin equals inferior. He would never come to that conclusion. It takes decades and generations of thinking in order for those thoughts and beliefs to catch on and become something that a society believes. That's how this pattern works. So actually, it's not as passive as you think, but changing your own mind, putting yourself in the position of empathy, compassion, and love is actually something that hasn't been done before, really. But that doesn't necessarily mean just going and burying your head in the sand. It means you're going to do what will actually change the world. And that's be more aware of your own mind, which will affect your heart and your output, and then the whole world before we know it. Because we see the people who changed their minds in the 70s and the 60s, they changed their minds quietly in the corner watching. And then they saw experience and information come together to equal knowledge. I just saw somebody treated unfairly. I remember this guy, this marching guy, King, talking about this, and I just saw it. The two added up, and now that person is in the potential position, the potential, energy potential to change, because his mind is now more open. Throwing a brick, every time somebody does that, there's somebody else who cradles their gun, who, you know, cradles their racism, their racist thoughts, and one side literally feeds the other. It's the same coin. So the thing that we can do to affect true change, number one, is to take care of our garden, right? If we want to be a part of the end of racism for real, like really future moving forward, this ends. Because if we had Karen and we took her to a village, Karen is just born and we took her to a village, and it has every ethnicity, it has every culture, women have just as much importance as men, children have just as much importance as adults, and we took Karen in that community and only showed her that community, she would never come to racist conclusions. She would never come to hate conclusions, which means that there is no principle driving those thoughts. It's all erroneous thought streams based on decades and generations of repetitive habitual thinking and attempting to control. And I can see that. So now I know the only thing that I can do to affect real change is to step out of that dynamic. And number one, and these are the three things. Number one, I take responsibility for my mind. I take responsibility for my output. Am I saying racist jokes? Am I laughing at the racist jokes? Am I participating in the sexist comments? Am I, you know, labeling people, judging people, comparing people? And am I just thinking my own opinion to myself all the time? Because how can my opinion ever change if I'm constantly reinforcing it? Maybe Mike is saying something that I should really consider, but I'm too busy entertaining my own opinion that I didn't hear a thing Mike just said. And it was the most important thing that I could have listened to, but I wasn't paying attention to the world around me. So number one, if we want to end racism in America and in the world, number one, we have to take care of our own thoughts. That's always first. Where is my mind? Where is my heart? And am I shining my light brightly in the presence of others? There's so many ways to do that. A t-shirt that says Black Lives Matter, something in your yard that says hate has no home here. There's so many ways that you could be creative, you could be elegant, you could think of really small things that equal big things when it accumulates. And that could come from a space of creativity, from a space of relaxation, and still from a space of activity. Because to shine your light brightly is active. That's an active thing. You're doing it in the presence of others specifically. And then that third element of you're available. If people have questions, if people want to know, if they want a little insight, you know, I've had this happen to me many times where, so the most recent one that just came to mind was when I was at Meatheads and the delivery driver was getting, I mean, there's some people that probably would have hit the guy. He got so close to me. But I knew he wasn't a threat because he had erratic breathing and I could see that his adrenaline was getting, so I knew he had no training. So he had a very low chance, maybe, I mean, I don't know, but he had a very low chance in my estimation of being a real threat to me. Plus I'm behind the counter, I know where everything sharp and hot is. So it's not a really good idea to come back here. But people asked me afterwards, Ernest, bro, if I was you, I would have clocked that guy, or, you know, how did you not say anything? And so they asked me those. Can you guys hold on just 1 second, please? Just 1 second. Sorry. They're trying to reach me about my car's extended warranty. They're trying to hustle me. Yeah, so Shayna says not free to move. Yep, learned behavior. So those are the three things. So these are the things that kind of occurred to me because I was like, Gene, number one, I do like to stay informed. I like information. I like data. I like to observe. And when my mind is not obstructed, I see perspective, and that's valuable to me. I may not always be able to communicate it to other people. Sometimes I can. Sometimes it sounds like, Ernest, what the f- are you talking about, man? Like it literally makes no sense because I'm attempting to describe the third ring, and we know how that goes. Sometimes it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't make sense. And so by doing my practice, I realized these three things, the three most important things to affect real change in the world. And take responsibility for your own thoughts, shine your light brightly in the presence of other people, and make yourself available to answer questions. If I want people to not litter, I will actually do more for the world by picking up litter in front of a child. Picking up litter and placing it into the bin in not a shitty way in front of the person who just littered. You know, they see that, not in a confrontational way, because, you know, if Gene drops a can, I could definitely pick it up and be like, motherfucker, and throw it in the trash. You know, that's not the same thing. So I would pick it up, just throw it in the trash, go about my business. That was shining my light brightly in the presence of others. And then maybe the kid would say, Mom, you know, what's up with that guy? Why did he pick up that trash? That was the opportunity to learn. That child just had, but Gene never saw it. Gene never knew about it, because he just shined his light brightly, never got the chance really to answer any questions. You don't know how you're affecting change really when you're just shining your light brightly, but that's what we can do. That's our responsibility. That's our output. The chips are in our corner. You know, we have all of the room to maneuver. We're free to move when we're in that dynamic.
Yeah.
So just to round it up, so basically what I'm saying is that by sticking to the practice, by maintaining my practice, I actually see more opportunity. I see more ways to help with real change and lasting change in the world, not just repeating the same experiment that looks a little bit different, expecting the same result, because it's really just a habit and it's all happened before. And if the mind and the heart doesn't change on the individual level, it will continue to happen, because no institution is going to lead to the evolution of consciousness. That is only something that can occur on the individual level. But that's the key. That's how we end racism in the world, is first our own mind, our own heart, and to work outwardly from there without attempting to control and change other people, because that just doesn't work, and it never has. Does that make sense?